Welcome back to A Book Binger. I'm just a girl binging books instead of Netflix. Happy New Year, everyone! 2022 is here and ready to kick some ass. What are you planning to accomplish this year? What are you going to change? I am very excited for this fresh start and most importantly, to make some changes on this podcast. As you know, I am new to podcasting, still learning the ropes and more importantly, learning how to speak adequately. Case in point. With that being said, I am putting more effort into making this a great podcast, not only for you, my lovely subscribers, but also for those who haven't listened yet. I'm going to be putting out episodes bi-weekly instead of weekly from here on out, so that I can give you guys more content than just the book I read that week. I'll be discussing topics surrounding the book community, topics that are included in the books that I've been reading, and as well still adding you beautiful people to come and discuss that with me. I'm really excited to dive into this. I'm really excited for this new change, and I'm so pumped for this week's topic. So let's dive in.
If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast, with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Hello, fellow book lovers. Another week, another book. I had a wonderful Christmas, and I hope y'all did too. One of my gifts I got was the book, The Guernsey Literary and Potato Pill Society. I was so stoked because I had actually watched the movie long before I knew it was a book. I also then started to research a little more and found some of the movies that I had seen, not knowing that they were books. So a few of them that I found out, for example, were Rebecca. Rebecca is a 2020 British romantic thriller film directed by Ben Wheatley from a screenplay by Jane Goldman and based on the 1938 novel Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, but I had actually stumbled upon Rebecca on Netflix and loved the movie. And I had found that a couple people on Bookstagram were actually reading Rebecca, and I was so shocked. I had no idea it was a book. So that's definitely on my to be read list, as well as I had come across the movie Me Before You. And I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, how did you not know that one wasn't a book? I don't know. I, again, just stumbled upon it one day and loved the movie. But Me Before You is a 2016 romantic drama film directed by Thea Sharrock. And it was adapted from the novel, which is by an English author, Jojo Moyes. And so I actually own that one because I got it, from a free little library. So I'm really excited to get into that one because, again, I loved the movie. And then lastly, on this just set of examples, I'm going to be probably bringing in some more too once I think of more. But The Help. I loved the movie. And again, I had no idea that it was a book. I am a little embarrassed and ashamed about that one. It is a 2011 period drama film written and directed by Tate Taylor and is based on Catherine Stockett's 2009 novel. So these are just a few of the book to movie adaptations that I had no idea were books to begin with because I had just watched these movies and I guess not paying attention to either the beginning or the end credits because I'm sure they said based on novels because they typically do. I'm just really excited to put these on my TBR lists. So saying all of that brought me to this book, the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society. So I had watched this one on Netflix. Oh my gosh, a couple years ago I came upon it. I really liked it. I loved the book and or sorry, not the book. I did love the book. I ended up reading it this week because I got it for Christmas. But the movie was awesome. I love historical fiction, and so this is placed in, um it's between France and London and the war that was going on between them in World War II, but also this little island called Guernsey during the German occupation. And it's about what am I doing? I need to just read you the little blurb that I have here. It's pretty little, but January 1946, writer Juliet Ashton receives a letter from a stranger, a founding member of society called the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society. And so begins a remarkable tale of the island of Guernsey during the German occupation, and of a society as extraordinary as its name. So this writer, Juliet, she is based in London, and it is just after World War II, and people are starting to kind of, get back on with their lives. There's still a lot of darkness, there's still a lot of hurt in the world. And Juliet, she is finishing up a series of columns for the newspaper that she was writing during the war and trying to come up with a book because she had received a lot of fame for these columns. They just made people really happy. And so she's trying to figure this out. But while she's figuring it out, she receives a letter. And it is from a man named Dossie. And he lives on the island of Guernsey. And I thought at first it was a little strange. Like, why is he writing to her? They have nothing in common. Like, they don't even know each other. But he he is bold in this particular moment, and I really appreciate that because then it brings on this entirely whole world for Juliet, and it's thrilling to read about. So Dossie, he came across a book, and he loved this book. It was by a man named Charles Lamb, and he wanted to read more about him. And particularly, he wanted to know more about Charles Lamb. And in this particular book there was Julia Ashton's name. And I was thinking about it and I was like, why would her name be in a book? Well, it made me think about early on in my childhood, my grandma, she had tons of books. She was a school teacher, and she had the little stickers with her name and her address on them. And as I recall too, I remember there being a lot of those kind of books in the library that were donated. They would have people's names and people's addresses on them, which I thought at first was kind of interesting. Like, why would you want to do that? But I mean, now that I'm older and I love these books, I would want them returned to me if I had either lost them or if, somebody had borrowed them and then they borrowed it to somebody else. Like, my name and my address, a way to contact me would be in the book so it could be returned to me if that was the case. Most of the time, these were just donated, right? But that's how Mr. Dossie came into Juliet's life. He introduced this whole new world to Juliet of the people on the island of Guernsey. And Juliet, she needed that. She was kind of in a stump after the war. Like I said, she was trying to pick up her life. A lot of things just were um, really hard during the war, obviously for everybody. And she started to kind of get her momentum back. And as she started talking with Dossie, she asked him some questions, just, as a pen pal would. And he had mentioned that he was a part of this literary society called the Potato Peel Society. And obviously, you have to ask somebody, what the heck is a potato peel pie? And so then begins Juliet's journey of learning about the wonderful people on Guernsey Island and a lot of what the German occupation did to them. Because even though there was the war going on between France and London, the islands of Guernsey are right there in that channel, and they were cut off from the world for 5 years. They had no kind of they had no kind of communication, whether it was by radio, telephone, news, letters. There was nothing. They were completely off the grid. And the Germans were kind of there as like a base camp. They were there to regroup, regain themselves, but also to make that island a place where they could grow food for the soldiers. And it really took a toll on the people of Guernsey. They were a small, quaint kind of farmland island fishing off the harbor, and it was really devastating for their community. And as you know, everyone in the war had a curfew. Theirs started to get earlier and earlier. And if you were caught outside a curfew, it was a very big deal. And one night, this group, they had got together. They weren't, necessarily friends, but they were just part of the small community. They had uh, they had a pig, and it was illegal. And so they kind of hush-hushed it, and they got together and they cooked this pig, and they were out after curfew trying to get back home, and they were caught. And there was this woman, her name was Elizabeth, and she lied through her teeth to the German soldiers. And she said that they were a part of the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society Book Club. And there were a few of those book clubs that were authorized to be out past curfew just a little bit in order to go home. And so she had totally saved their butts. And thus begins the journey of this wonderful book. Another thing I really like about this book is that it wasn't written in a first person kind of view. It was written with the letters that Juliet wrote to the people on Guernsey Island. And I really enjoyed that because it not only gives you a feel of what Juliet is reading and receiving and what her life is like, but it gives you a feel of those people that are writing the letters to her. So, for example, in the movie, it wasn't that way. It did portray the letters that were written, but it wasn't so letter focused, if you know what I mean. So, the people on Guernsey Island kind of were standoffish to Julia at first, which is rightfully so. That they didn't really know this person, and when she came to visit Guernsey, they didn't seem as welcoming, to me at least, as it is pursued in the book. Because in the book, they get to know Juliet very well personally through the letters first. They're corresponding quite often throughout a year, pretty much, if less. I could have got my timeline wrong. But when Juliet comes to Guernsey Island in the book, she is welcomed, she is loved. These people are so happy to see her. They feel like family. I guess not family right away because she's just this really great friend that they've had, but that's how it is. They're welcoming a friend to this island. So in the movie, I didn't see that part. They were very shut off. She just came to them trying to learn more about them. They didn't like that, but I really liked that part of the book, that they were warm, welcoming, and loving. And as well, it just they created more of a family, and she loved this island so much just right off the bat. I didn't get that in the movie either. And so for me, I loved the book because it just had a lot of love, connection, also though a lot of heartache, and she could feel that. Juliet could feel that too, that this island had a lot of heartache. I really like that. So that's my review of the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society book versus movie. And some other things that I wanted to touch on. I touched on books made to movies that I hadn't known were books, but I also wanted to make that connection that there have been some books that were made into movies that I hated. I'm sure there are a ton that you guys can think of. And I'd like to hear which ones you thought of, because as I was sitting here making the podcast, I drew a blank on quite a few, and I know there are a lot out there. One, though, that really stuck out to me, I recently read Ready Player One. I had never seen the movie. I didn't really think I'd enjoy it, so I just kind of stayed away from it. But my husband loved the book. And so I read the book with him. It's also on my podcast. You guys can go check that podcast out, see what I said about the book particularly. But I made the mistake of then watching the movie. I hate the movie. There's nothing good about it. I don't like it. I'm sorry for those who loved it. I'm sorry for those who think, "Oh, the book was great and so is the movie." No. I loved the book and I hated the movie. Point blank. You can't tell me otherwise. I am stuck in my opinion. And so, for those who have no idea what I'm talking about, Ready Player One was made in 2018. It's an American science fiction adventure film based on Ernest Cline's novel, Ready Player One. Everyone loved it because it was directed by Steven Spielberg. And Steven Spielberg was mentioned in the book. I have no beef with Steven Spielberg. I think he's awesome. And I just loved the book, but hated the movie. I've also heard that, okay, don't judge me, guys. I have not read all of Harry Potter. I know. I really need to sit down and I really need to read it because I've heard so many people say that the movies have nothing compared to the books. Of course, the movies are great. I grew up on Harry Potter. Everyone pretty much grows up on Harry Potter. You can't go wrong with the movies. But the books I've heard are 1,000 times better. They just go into so much detail. I started reading the books when I was probably about, I want to say 9 and 10, I think. I remember specifically reading the third book. I don't think I finished it. And honestly, I couldn't tell you what was in it or the first two. But I remember I was at my grandma's house up in my attic room and I had the three right there and I was reading them. But yeah, I didn't get that far. So I really need to sit down and I really need to read those because I love the movies and everybody tells me that the books are way better. So that's what I have for you guys now. I want to know what you guys think. What books did you hate that were made into movies? What books did you think were phenomenal that were made into movies? And what are some that you want to talk about? What are some that you want me to read? Because, like I said, I have a few that are on my list to read that I've seen the movies but haven't read the book. So let me know if I've missed any. If you're like, no, stop everything, read this one. I will. I will. And I'll have you talk to me about why you think I should. So thanks again, guys. I just love that you guys listen to me and support me on this. It's been so fun. And I am just so excited for this new year. All right, my book lovers. I love you guys so much. Thanks so much for listening to this week. Please go check out my social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I also have my podcasts on Apple, Google, Spotify, and whatever you're listening to. Please support me. Please reach out to me. I love having all the love you guys send to me. I really also want to hear your voices. Send me a voice recording. It's super simple. If you need more direction, please reach out to me. Go to my website. You can email me there. Or again, go on my social media accounts. I love to hear from you guys. Have a blessed week, and I will see you guys soon.